Elias had learned early in his life that the galaxy did not care about kindness. Out here, between trade routes and forgotten systems, everything had a price. Food, fuel, time, even silence. Still, he kept helping where he could, not because it earned him anything, but because it felt wrong not to. The trade station called Kepri's Reach floated near the edge of map space. It was old, patched together from different designs, and powered by systems that should have been retired decades ago. Merchants passed through when they had no better option. Refugees hid here when no one else would take them. Criminals avoided it because there was nothing worth stealing. Elias worked maintenance. Some days he fixed air filters. Other days he repaired docking clamps or helped reroute power when the lights flickered. The pay was small but steady. He lived in a narrow room with a bunk, a locker, and a viewport that looked out onto rusted hull plating. He did not dream of greatness. He dreamed of quiet days where nothing broke and no one got hurt. That cycle began like any other. The station hummed with low-energy traffic. A few cargo ships docked, unloaded, and left. Elias was finishing a shift when a warning tone echoed through the bay, short, sharp, and easy to miss. A ship was coming in wrong. He looked up from his toolkit and saw it drifting toward an empty docking ring. The vessel was sleek, shaped in curves instead of angles, its surface dark like polished stone. It did not match any common design Elias knew. Its thrusters flickered unevenly, struggling to stabilize. "No clearance request," a dock worker muttered nearby. "Probably another rich fool who thinks this place runs itself." The ship bumped the docking ring harder than it should have. The clamps struggled, then locked. For a moment, everything went still. Then the ship powered down completely. Elias frowned. Power failures were dangerous, especially on unfamiliar vessels. He grabbed his tools and moved closer, ignoring the other workers who shrugged and went back to their tasks. The hatch opened slowly. A figure stepped out alone. She was tall, her posture straight, her movements controlled. Her clothing was simple, dark, and clean, but clearly not cheap. Her skin shimmered faintly under the station lights, reflecting soft gold tones. Her eyes scanned the dock with sharp focus, calculating distances, exits, people. She did not look afraid, but Elias noticed something else. The ship behind her was badly damaged. Hairline fractures ran along its hull. Energy conduits were exposed near the rear. That kind of damage did not happen by accident. She took one step forward, then paused. Her gaze landed on Elias. They studied each other for a quiet moment. Around them, the dock carried on as if nothing unusual was happening. "You seem to be having trouble," Elias said at last. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in surprise. "This station offers technical support." "Not officially," he replied, "but I do repairs." She hesitated. In that pause, Elias could almost see her weighing options, calculating costs, predicting betrayal. "I can compensate you," she said carefully. Elias shook his head. "Let me see what's wrong first." That answer unsettled her more than refusal would have. She led him back onto the ship. Inside, the vessel was quiet and dim. The systems were advanced, far beyond anything Elias usually worked with, but damaged badly enough that even unfamiliar technology showed clear problems. Someone had sabotaged this ship. Elias ran his hand along a cracked panel. "Your power relay is fractured." "Did you jump recently?" "Yes," she said, "under pressure." "That explains it. You're lucky the core didn't collapse." Her lips pressed together. "Luck is not something I rely on." "Today you can," Elias said. "This will take time." She watched him closely as he worked. He moved carefully, speaking softly to the machine as if it could hear him. He improvised repairs using station parts, adapting connectors that were never meant to fit alien systems. "You could demand payment," she said after a while. "I could," Elias agreed, "but you don't." "No, why?" He paused, thinking. "Because if it were me stranded, I'd hope someone would help." That answer stayed with her. Hours passed. The station lights dimmed into night cycle. Elias worked without complaint. When he realized the repair would take longer, he left briefly and returned with water and food, placing them within her reach. "You don't know who I am," she said quietly. "That's okay," Elias replied. "You know who you are, that should be enough." Something shifted behind her eyes. Unknown to Elias, unseen sensors in the station recorded everything. Not station security, something far more discreet. Data packets streamed outward, encrypted beyond civilian detection, reporting each movement, each word, each choice. The woman was not a stranded traveler. She was Queen Seralith of the Aurelian Collective, ruler of more wealth than entire civilizations could measure. Her personal assets controlled markets, supply lines, and governments. Her presence alone could destabilize economies. She had come to the edge of space in secret to escape a silent war of influence, a conflict where betrayal wore polite smiles. Her own advisors had turned on each other. Trust had become a liability. Her ship was sabotaged by those closest to her. And now a human, an insignificant worker by galactic standards, was repairing it without knowing any of this. She had expected exploitation, fear, bargaining. She did not expect kindness without conditions. As the repairs neared completion, Elias wiped sweat from his brow. "That should hold, not perfect but strong enough to get you somewhere safer." She studied the restored systems, then him. "You've taken a risk." "Yeah," Elias said, "but that's part of the job." "It is not your job," she corrected. He smiled faintly. "Then it's just being decent." The word lingered in the air. She stepped back toward the hatch. "If I told you who I am, would you ask for more?" Elias shook his head. "Probably just ask if you're okay." Her expression softened just slightly. She paused at the doorway. "Why choose this life?" Elias thought about his small room, the broken station, the endless quiet. "Because someone has to keep places like this running, and because helping people makes the days lighter." She nodded slowly, committing his words to memory. She left the ship, her escorts arriving moments later from concealed transport. They moved with perfect coordination, surrounding her protectively. Elias stepped back, confused but calm. She turned to face him one last time. "Human," she said, her voice carrying authority he still did not recognize. "If the galaxy ever offers you more than you need, what would you do?" He answered without hesitation. "Share it." For the first time in centuries, the richest being in the galaxy felt something crack, not in her ship but in her certainty. She boarded her vessel. The hatch sealed. Engines ignited smoothly. As the ship departed, Elias returned to his tools, unaware that across the stars, markets would soon tremble, alliances would bend, and the idea of power itself would be questioned. All because a human helped a stranger without asking her name. And far away, in a throne room of light and data, Queen Seralith watched the recording again, her voice quiet as she whispered, "Find me more like him." The galaxy had no idea what was coming. Queen Seralith returned to the heart of the Aurelian Collective without ceremony. Her ship entered the capital system under full secrecy, its identity masked behind layers of false signals. To the galaxy, she had never left. To her court, she had simply been silent longer than usual, but inside her something had changed. The capital world was a marvel of controlled beauty. Cities floated above oceans of light. Towers shaped by art and mathematics rose into the sky. Every structure existed to display stability, wealth, and power. Nothing here was built by accident. Nothing was given freely. As her ship docked, advisors waited in perfect formation. Their faces were calm, respectful, and carefully unreadable. They bowed as she passed, their voices smooth as polished metal. "Your absence caused concern," said High Steward Varanox. There were movements in the markets. Seralith walked past him without slowing. "Then the markets survived," she replied, "as they always do." She entered the council chamber alone and dismissed the guards. The doors sealed. Silence settled. For a long time she stood still. Her mind returned to the edge station, to rusted walls, to failing lights, to a human with oil-stained hands who had helped without asking why. That memory felt more real than the world around her. She activated a private console and ordered a full analysis of humanity. Not the usual surface reports, not economic summaries or military projections. She wanted everything. The data surprised even her. Humans were new to the galactic stage, still struggling for recognition. They lacked vast fleets. Their worlds were uneven, sometimes chaotic. Yet they survived conditions other species avoided. They rebuilt after losses others would surrender to. They formed communities in places where profit was impossible. Most unusual of all, they helped each other even when no authority demanded it. Sarilith leaned back, thoughtful. Meanwhile, beyond the capital, subtle pressure began to rise. Rival coalitions sensed weakness in her silence. Trade agreements were tested. Resource access was delayed. Messages arrived wrapped in politeness and threat. Any other time she would have responded with forceful economic moves. Markets would bend. Systems would comply. This time she waited. She summoned her inner council. "You believe wealth is control," she said calmly, looking at them one by one. "Tell me what happens when control fails." There was hesitation. Advisors exchanged glances. "Control does not fail," Varanox said carefully. "It is reinforced." "And when loyalty is bought?" Sarilith asked. "What happens when the price changes?" Silence. She dismissed them without explanation. That same cycle she sent a message, not to empires or councils, but to human representatives scattered across minor systems. The offer was simple: cooperation, knowledge exchange, limited partnership, no domination, no ownership. The response was slow, cautious, and honest. Humans asked questions. They debated internally. They did not rush to agree. When they replied, their conditions were clear: fairness, transparency, and shared benefit. Sarilith found herself smiling. The first joint project was small. A damaged trade route that others ignored because it was not profitable enough. Human engineers volunteered. They worked with Aurelian systems, adapting, learning, improving. They did not complain when conditions were harsh. They did not demand praise. They simply did the work. The route reopened faster than projected. Then another project followed, then another. Other species watched with growing unease. Humans are inefficient, rival envoys argued. They lack refinement. Yet the results spoke louder than theory. At the same time, Sarilith did something unprecedented. She ordered reforms within her own domain. Workers received protections instead of incentives alone. Minor worlds were supported without immediate return. Advisors were evaluated not for loyalty, but for integrity. Resistance formed quickly. "You are weakening the collective," Varanox warned during a private audience. "You are giving away leverage." Sarilith met his gaze steadily. "I am building something leverage cannot replace." Behind the scenes, she ordered a search, not for assets or enemies, but for people like Elias. Humans who helped without expectation, who worked quietly, who chose cooperation over advantage. They were rare, but they existed. She did not summon them to court. She did not offer titles. Instead, she created systems where they could thrive without being consumed by power. Elias remained on Kepri's reach, unaware of most of this. Life continued much as before: repairs, long shifts, quiet meals. Until one cycle, a message arrived. It was simple, an invitation to speak. No demand, no threat. He almost ignored it. Curiosity won. The transport that arrived for him was modest, unmarked. The journey took him farther than he had ever been. When he stepped into the Aurelian capital, the scale stunned him. He was escorted not to a throne room but to a quiet chamber with open light and simple design. Sarilith entered alone. This time there was no disguise. Elias froze. "You're the—" He stopped himself, overwhelmed. She inclined her head. "I am the one you helped." He swallowed. "I didn't know." "I know," she said softly. "That is why this matters." She offered him wealth. more than he could spend in many lifetimes. She offered influence, safety, comfort. Elias listened, then shook his head. "I don't need all that," he said carefully. "I just want people like me to not struggle for doing the right thing." Saarlith felt the final certainty break and reform into something stronger. She agreed. The announcement that followed reshaped the galaxy. Human-Aurelian partnerships expanded. Trade became more balanced. Conflict resolution shifted from dominance to dialogue. Other species resisted at first, then adapted. Not because they feared Saarlith's wealth, but because they saw loyalty forming where none had existed before. Varanox resigned quietly. Years passed. Humanity's position changed. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as a stabilizing presence. Where humans worked, systems improved. Where humans lived, cooperation followed. Historians struggled to explain it. They would later trace the change back to a single event on a forgotten station. A broken ship, a human who offered help, and a queen who learned that the greatest power in the galaxy was not riches, but the choice to care, even when no one was watching.